Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and we are in very interesting times. And I'm not quite sure what it is that I should be saying or not saying because I'm doing this chat in English. If I was doing it in Spanish, I would just say, look how interesting. But because it's in English, I have to modify the information because most of the listeners that we have that speak only English are not up to speed having to do with what's happening in the other dimensions, which includes the spaceships, the aliens, the ETs, etc. So now I have to, and I'm going to say it, I have to dumb down what I'm going to say because you're not up to speed. This is not a good thing because it looks like we certainly are into revelations having to do with off planet beings, their electronic machines, their spaceships, some of which I guess look like drones that can come out of the ocean, that can do all sorts of things. Doing stuff in the other dimensions is a lot more interesting and easy than doing things on the physical dimension. Stuff that on the physical dimension, you all think it's impossible, is not impossible in the other dimensions when you work in the other dimensions. As an example, I am putting together a protocol for the generic public having to do with the shift of consciousness that is going to happen, whether people like it or not, having to do with these revelations. Even if all those drones, spaceships, whatever they are, even if they go away and never come back, at least the United States will never be the same again because the cat's out of the bag. There's an awful lot of activity. It's not just two people, it's not just New Jersey, it's not just countryside, it's not just low IQ people that are superstitious. It's like everybody is seeing them. So I'm setting up protocols um, for adjusting to this new reality in which planet Earth is now openly being enfolded into the galactic, which is what's happening. So the first thing that I'm recommending is the purification mantra, which we call the Fox purification mantra. And it has to do with fear, even though I am afraid. I love and accept myself, even though I'm actually recommending that we say, even though we are afraid, I love and accept myself. And just to do it continuously, because fear is human reaction to when there's something that's unknown or something that looks like it's frightening or something that looks like it can harm them. And that certainly is a legitimate reaction. Then the other mantra is an intention mantra, and then I have a visualization in which you visualize that you're in June 2025 and you're saying to somebody, darn, it's been so peaceful and prosperous since Revelations, because this is Revelations. This is going on. These ships have revealed themselves. This is part of Revelations. Revelations is not just about all the yuck stuff that the aliens, the ETs, that the politicians and business people did behind the scenes. It's not. It's about everything. It's about, as the Mayan said, within yourself, everything that you've done that's really ugly since you were born, that you don't even remember because it's too painful. All that's floating up in your consciousness and making people a little bit not real comfortable with themselves. So Revelations covers everything, including this that's happening right now. So it's a biblical time. And I will get the protocol available to you within several days. And it is for people that are spiritually sophisticated. People are going to get cranky. What do you mean? I'm not spiritually sophisticated? No, you're not spiritually sophisticated. Most of us, most of you, because society in this part of the world has simply not supported that. You have been thought to be dumb, low IQ, obviously not university educated if you believed in spaceships and ETs. And yet, in all the other countries, everybody has stories and everybody accepts those stories, which are not really stories, but everybody accepts those happenings as It happened. Now, did they move to the next step? No, no. You know who's anchoring that energy on the planet, and they should be anchoring it, is Peru. And it's not a coincidence that they had a big conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that the US government was shaking hands with Peru having to do with, I think, those alien bodies that were discovered. That's not a coincidence. The work that we did as a group, the Mantrista movement, a couple of years ago, where we went to all the Latin American countries and North American countries, including the United States, and we purified whatever energies there were that could be causal for violence. And in all of the countries, except for a couple, that energy was from a couple hundred years ago when the countries were invaded. And in terms of the United States, it was when the people from the East, the white people from the East, went to the West and then just basically killed all the indigenous, the Indians, uh, because they didn't quite understand that those people really own that land. I swear. It's so fascinating, the entitlement of people that are well positioned. So, when we did all of these countries and we purified that energy, the country that stood out was Peru. And in Peru, there was a lot of rage in the land due to when the Spaniards came and they used to use the Peruvians to take stuff up the mountain, like to Machu Picchu. And then when they finished delivering whatever they were carrying on their backs, rather than having to provide them food to go back down and pick up a new cargo that they would carry on their back up the mountain, they would throw them off the side of the mountain and kill them. Horrifying. And yet they were disposable. But there was an intention that was set in place at that time having to do with future events, which is today. And now I'm not remembering what the connection was, but it had to do with Peru being strong enough to take a stand against galactics. And I would have to go back to the videos that are on YouTube and find out what exactly is that missing piece of information. But we have to support Peru in any way, shape, or form because Peru is totally anchored having to do with any potential alien invasion. And we know now that Peru had those bodies that all the scientists said were not significant and imposters and make believe. And then they were taken to Mexico and they've been examined by who knows how many dozens of doctors. And they are legitimate skeletons of aliens. So pay attention to Peru having to do with what's going on in the United States. In Peru, the Peruvian people either all had some kind of an encounter with an alien or saw a spaceship. I mean, like almost everybody. And it's a natural thing. Now, did they take it a step forward? No. Not to my knowledge. I don't know. Not to my knowledge. I know that they kept a very tight grip on those bodies, on those alien corpses. Because I was going to do a podcast on them, and I had already interviewed the head of that department for the military about a year before, who, by the way, got into the whole alien thing when his daughter died, when she was like 5 or 6 years old. And he started to explore what life is about. It's kind of storming here. What life is about, and he ended up with the aliens, and he ended up in charge of basically the thing with the bodies. So I contacted him several months ago and said I wanted to do an interview on them, and he said, "Listen, do not touch that with a 10-foot pole." And I went, "What?" He said, "Do not touch it with a 10-foot pole." And I went, "Okay," and I didn't. And of course, after that was the whole thing with Peru's got these bodies, and nobody believed it, and they went to Mexico, and it turned out that the bodies were actually alien bodies. So we have issues with belief systems and then positioning people who actually are trying to do good work, positioning them badly. Which brings me to what I should be saying to you today. I can speak to those beings that are in those spaceships. So I was walking up the stairs getting ready for this. And I went, do I do it? Do I not do it? Why not? So I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to talk to the spaceships that have apparently gone over Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago, which Florida, and find out what the heck is going on. Um, you need to know that in the other dimensions, the time doesn't exist, and neither does measurements. So one part of my protocol, Frog's protocol for galactic integration, or however we're going to finally name it, one part of it is to remind my followers, but telling everyone that when you work in the other dimensions, you're very powerful. And that's where superpowers are, in the other dimensions, or in the third eye. The top three chakras are not associated with physical life on the physical dimension. So one of the things that I am suggesting that the people that look at the document and want to follow the protocol do is that they do all the mantras and tell God this is for everybody on the planet. And when they do the visualizations, that they say this is for everyone on the planet. And you can do that and it can work. And my example, which I give a lot because it's just so important. 30 years ago, I went to a transpersonal psychology conference in northern Brazil, that was run by Stan Grof, the guy who brought LSD in to this country. The man that our government used when they brought in the LSD to run the experiments that were run in the universities and whatever, without the students knowing. So I went to that conference, and there was Saturday night of the conference, there was a guru who stood on stage, and you may have heard the story before, but it's very important because you can do this too. That's the point. The point is not that that man did it. The point is not that 30 years later I'm able to do it. The point is that you can do it also. But it's your belief system that has you totally trapped. So he's standing on stage, he gives his speech. He's a guru from India. And I, okay, fine. And he says, now I'm going to give every single one of you a healing. And I went, yes, sure. So go ahead and close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. 2 minutes later, 1 minute, my eyes are open because I'm an anxious person. I went into shock. A spirit of his, identical, was standing next to every person in the room. And we were 500 people. Now, nobody told me that that's what he was going to do. He said he was going to give us all a healing. I didn't believe him. But he did, because he duplicated himself 500 times. Oh my God. Well, actually, your spirit body, the one that everybody talks about when you die, but is there before you die, can duplicate itself. In psychology, sometimes they call it multiple personalities. Almost all of you are multiple personalities. If you have extreme mood changes, like you get really moody, or you drink, or you do drugs, or when something triggers you, you get really off the wall, that's usually a split. Okay? So almost everybody has those splits. But his intention was to give all of us a healing. And he did. When I saw that, I went, I want to do that. I actually do it today. I have the seminars that I'm giving. I am giving every person who's in the seminar, I am personally giving each one of them a healing of a specific list of things that I say that I'm going to do in that particular seminar. The new one that we're going to have is on diabetes and pancreatitis. And I'm going to be healing that area. And I suspect we're going to get some really good reports or testimonials we're getting on these classes, or whatever you want to call them, have been spectacular. So, but it is because I saw that man do that 30, 40 years ago, and I said, I want to do that. And you could say I developed that superpower, but it is available to all human beings. So what I'm saying in the protocols is that everything that everybody does when they follow the protocols, whether all of the suggestions or some of them, that they need to remember the fact that they do have access to superpowers, and that this is the time to use them, because those ETs are definitely using their superpowers. So why not use it, especially having to do with getting centered and grounded and helping everybody else to get centered and grounded. That's really my that's a very important thing that I bring to the table to be able to stabilize situations. And these particular protocols should be able to be something that people can hang on to as they're looking at the news to see what happens next, or what was it that so and so said, da 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 da. I have to say that because we're so behind having to do with this knowledge, that I think that everything that is said by anybody in power is going to be a half truth or a lie. They cannot tell you everything that they've been doing for all of these years. I mean, I was trained when I'm going to assume I was probably between 7 and 10. I was trained in interspecies communication, but it was not to talk to your pets. So I'm 76, and let's say I was 7. So that's 70 years ago, in which me and apparently a whole group of kids were trained in that. Do you think they just put us in closets? No, they didn't. Where's all that stuff? Where's all that information? Where's that knowledge? You have a knowledge base that you can stand on, but somebody's got to admit they have it. And that's going to be a big problem. Now it's going to be good. Trump comes in. He wasn't the one who did this. Trump, one of your first things day one, I need a check cut to me, please. I've never paid for all these many years of all this free work for this country. First day, freeing J6 people. Check to Francis Fox. It's not a joke, but I can wait a week. So there's a lot of knowledge out there, and that knowledge is up here, and then the general public is down here. Now, the Hispanic public, the Russians, not every European, but a lot of them that are very still connected to the older people and to more established hierarchical, traditional, whatever, most of them um, accepting this will be less of a struggle having to do with, is this true? Now, the rest of it, what's going to happen after we accept? Now, how do we integrate this? So, anyway, planet Earth is apparently in a process of what we were told before becoming part of the galactic family. And that sounds really nice, except as I reminded somebody today, we even have vicious, terrible people in our families. The unnice people can be within our families, not just people outside. And it's the same thing with all the ATs. You've got good, you've got bad, you've got sick, you've got hidden intentions, you've got some of them really couldn't care less. They're just coming for whatever they're coming for. And that's something that everybody needs to understand, because everybody wants to classify them into a group, good and bad. It's funny when we've worked with the different countries in Latin America, purifying for there to be stability so that people can make their political choices however they want to make them, but that there be stability. Um, I think 3 or 4 years ago, when I would do the sketch of Venezuela, I would see black spaceships, and then I would be sketching pink spaceships. Well, pretty obvious. The black ones are the bad guys and the pink ones are the good guys. So in the other dimensions, stuff is presented to you usually in a way that you can understand. I mean, that's simple. It's black, bad guys, black hats, pink, the good guys. And that's important. That the other dimensions are so phenomenal that if something is determined that you should understand it and know it, you will get it in a way that you can understand it and know it. As an example, many years ago, I was having a session of acupuncture. And when I looked up, the acupuncturist had this look on her face of, oh my God. And I thought, what? And she went, she didn't want to interrupt the peace and quiet of the session. So when it finished, I said to her, what was that face? She said, oh my God, I saw this white light on top of you. I saw this angel on top of you, right over you, hovering over you, giving you a healing. And I went, wow. I said, you know what I saw? And she said, what? I said, I saw white light. over me. We both witnessed the same thing, but we both witnessed a version of that that we could accept and understand. She believed in angels at that point, and I didn't. Not my thing. She did. But that same sacred energy I saw as white light. So this the whole shape shifting thing. If you can start to wrap your head around that, it's going to help you a lot to understand all the stuff that apparently is going to land on us. It's flying above us. It's going to land on us. The rules, the laws are different. A lot of it is a lot better than the physical dimension. I mean, people that know say that when we're born, we're incarnated. Carne is meat in Latin, also Spanish, carne, a slab of meat that you're going to have, a steak. It's meat. Incarnate means your spirit comes into the meat of your physical body. And it is said that when that happens, it's a death because of all of the restrictions of having a physical body. And that when you die, which really is your physical body that dies, that's when you're free. So a lot of our belief systems are based on the limitation of the physical body. And once you remove that limitation, then everything's different. Like this enemy that I have, that I'm not sure he's been put away yet. My handler that has not let go. Darn, I read the chat for a second and then I got lost. One of the reasons why I've continued to battle with him, in addition to the fact that this is intolerable, is, and I have not wished that the guy just die. That's it, over, get it over with, is because we have a battle going on, he and I, and even if his physical body is dead, I will still have a battle with his spirit because most of our interaction is not on the physical dimension, which I'm sure a lot of people are not going to be able to wrap their heads around, which is why I don't talk about it. Most of our interactions are not physical. So if he physically dies, it doesn't resolve my issue of him trying to control me. So all of these things are things that you're going to have to start getting used to, and it is an awful lot. It's like a bit too much. So if you do mantras to soothe yourselves, to soothe those negative emotions, and if you have a lot of contact with nature, especially earth and water, parks, mountains, beach, rivers, it will soothe you a lot. And then, of course, we have a mantra for you to gracefully accept all of these revelations. And that helps a lot. If not, the human mind is simply reacting to with fear. And then, of course, the fear turns into anger at the guys that should have let us know, lied to us, are not telling us everything, etc. So I'll get that. I will have that protocol finished this week, and we can start to distribute it and get people to do it, knowing that you already have the information, that you have the ability to heal thousands of people at a time. You just have to set that intention. I set that intention when I saw that guru decades ago. And about 3 years ago, my followers would say, Frances, you showed up in my dream last night and I had a bad knee and you took care of my knee in the dream. 2 days ago, somebody said, did you finish my purification? I said, I haven't done it yet. She said, but that's okay because you showed up last night and you stood over me and you took care of this. I don't even know that I'm doing that, but that is my intention. That's my intention. So you just have to learn to work with the law of intention. You just need to work with the number one. You need to learn to work with how reality is created on planet Earth. Okay, let's get to something a little bit more interesting. Let me talk to a couple of these spaceships. Remember, I'm going to remind you that months ago, my group, we went to some spaceships that were stationed over the pyramids. And I said to everybody, go into the spaceship and talk to whoever's in there and just ask whatever, just get in there. And I did. And I was talking to someone, and I don't remember if I asked them, because some of the military guys that have talked on X have talked about these aliens say that their spaceships are an extension of their mind. So I think that I asked them that question because I was curious. And the alien said to me, no, I didn't ask that. He volunteered. He said, this spaceship is an extension of my mind. It's like Neuralink. And I went, okay. I have not been comfortable with Neuralink. None of us wants to be attached to a machine. But once I had that experience in that spaceship over the pyramids, obviously this is astral travel, which is what those spaceships are doing. Um, my attitude towards Neuralink, which was, I'm sure all of us have been distressed by that. Oh my God, we're human machines. But if they are doing that, which means we're all capable of doing that, then being able to use that ability to connect somebody to a machine to where they can walk when they couldn't, it's a-okay. But it's the whole shock of something, this paradigm being so new. And that's why we're doing the Fox protocols for this galactic integration, in order to take care of the human part of us that, like, not ready for it, don't understand where are we going with this. So let me just talk to a couple of people, aliens in these spaceships. I'm going to choose the ones that went over, that were in South Florida or were Trump's home, and see if they will talk to me now. Why not? I don't know. What the alien is telling me is that this country, the United States, has played such games with its citizens, that there's going to be an outrage that is going to be very difficult to control. People are going to feel very foolish because they were so lied to. And so, okay, we already kind of know that. So he's telling me that they're double checking places that have the ability to destroy the planet, which would, of course, would include nuclear sites, and places where there's a volume of people that have the ability to make a difference, to make choices, people that need to understand that there's something big going on. Um, so they're not appearing in places where there's nobody or there's nothing. They want to be seen. It's a plan. So, what is the most important thing we need to know? He says to fasten your seatbelts, and that this did not need to go down this way, that it could have been easier. It could have been like a soft sail rather than a crisis. And his last words are, TV messed up the human mind. Television. We're not going to go further into that. I agree with him on that. Why do I agree with him? Because the images on TV are captured by your aura, your mind, and they're the food for your creations. And what do you watch on TV all day long? Is violence. And if you witness somebody being murdered, that image stays with you. If you watch it in TV, that image stays with you. And this was explained to me years ago, 31st of December, 1996, I think it was. No, 2005. That what happens on the physical dimension in terms of images and your memory and creation of reality is not any more important than what you witness in a TV show or on the internet. Those images have the same impact. So I can see his point. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a mantra. Um, and I'm not going to be doing any more talking tonight in terms of why does Adam Schiff come out? Why is that name here right now? Is he listening to this podcast? Hello, Adam Schiff. How are you? You're listening to my podcast, my chat. What do you have to do with all of this? Huh, interesting. And I can see him backing away from the. He's standing up and he's saying, "We got to round these crazies up and lock them up." Yeah, sure. Whoa. Let me see where this is coming from. What's the intention? Not coming from. What is the intention? What, did he have anything to do with any of this? Maybe somebody will look up Adam Schiff and tell me what committees he was on. We might find out something interesting. Okay. This is certainly an ending of the cycle on planet Earth. I'm going to again refer you to a series that I did that was supposed to be one video. We had to cut it up in 5 because it was about alien invasions. It was real, it's accurate, it's absolutely real, but it was too much. Everybody who saw it said, "This is too much. Nobody's going to be able to take this." And this is a series we have on my YouTube channel, Francis Fox Reveals, and it's called Don't Panic. That's the name of it. You need to look at the series, and it talks about, yeah, of course I spelled it wrong. Putting it up anyway. Don't Panic, it's a series. There's a playlist. And it explains restless leg syndromes, it explains the sexual perversions, and all of those are alien invasions. So you might want to look at that. You might go, "That's god awful. Who's going to believe that?" That's okay. The important thing is not to block information. The Buddha said that the basis for human anguish was ignorance, and ignorance is a lack of information. Now, we have exited the age of information and we are in the age of transformation. So anything that you get from anybody having to do with news or whatever in any area of your life should include a certain amount of information. You need to know what's going on. But then you need to have information on how to transform that if that is not what you want. And that's where we need to be. We need to go into the shock of these revelations. And then before we even draw the next breath, we need to say, where are we going? What are we supposed to be doing with this? How do we ensure that this is good for us? It cannot be easy because we are so behind. We were supposed to already be fully in charge of our superpowers. Ah, I get it now. And I'll say the story again. We were supposed to have human beings were supposed to have access to the superpowers, which is in the third eye, that eye that everybody's so afraid of. They're there in a not yet discovered gland called the mimosa gland. You'll find it later, not a problem. You won't find it now. It hasn't been discovered by scientists. I was going to say you're scientists. Darn. Let me not start that separation. So it was determined by the people that kind of regulate this planet, the Galactic Federation, Great White Brother Galactic Federation, that humans were not ready for superpowers. We were supposed to have access to them in the early 60s when the age of Aquarius started to pick up. Okay. And it was determined that we could not have access to it because of the 2 bombs that we dropped at the end of Second World War. We had already won the war, and yet we dropped 2 bombs just to see, to satisfy the scientists' questions. So it was determined that we couldn't have the superpowers. That determination, that ended, and we are now allowed to access, or are able to access our superpowers a little bit late, because if we had started in the 60s, by now we would be further along, having to do with power in relationship to the power of the people that are showing up on the planet. But it apparently was felt that it was irresponsible that you don't put superpowers in the hands of people that detonate bombs when you already won a war. Now that makes sense. So how come we have a government that can do stuff like that that doesn't make sense? And that's screwed us up. Why? Paradigm of hierarchy, male dominated hierarchy, not necessarily male bodies, male energy dominated hierarchy, which basically is ending now in this entering of the age of Aquarius. We're in an interesting place, but we'll get the protocols out and we will do as much as possible to give you the information that might help to make this easier. And I am going to have the dolphins give me a long document about these beings. But the ones that I talked to over South Florida certainly sound very reasonable. I'm not sure that I'd be able to talk to the ones that are not reasonable. Ah, man, may you live in interesting times. That's what we're living in. So let's go ahead and do a mantra, which is going to be just do the even though I'm afraid. Which is the first mantra. Hold on. See if I can do it without misspelling. Okay, this is also the first mantra on the protocol, having to do with revelations of aliens. And I'm going to use the music that is the best for anchoring you to the physical dimension, earth element. And when you're very anchored, there's a lot less fear. And the main thing I want to ask the dolphins is about the elements. Generally speaking, aliens have a very hard time on the physical dimension. They don't do well with the earth element. So if you're real grounded, and that's the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, the original Aramaic version, if you're grounded, landed, rooted, you don't have to be protected from evil. But most of us are kind of floaty. So this mantra music that I'm putting on now has the frequencies and the images having to do with the earth element. So that together with this mantra, even though I'm afraid, I love and accept myself, should really, really stabilize you. So let's try it now for 10 minutes, okay? Okay. By the way, Adam Schiff is the head of the nation's intelligence agencies, not just one, which should mean then the intelligence agencies are going to be dealing with uh, these this galactic integration. So I'm going to request, Adam Schiff, that you be careful about who you put in charge of this, because if you put military in charge, we'll end up with war. Because there's a lot of those galactics that would not have an issue with going to war. So maybe your choice of who's going to be heading the communication and the decisions should be somebody that does not take us to war. This country is not strong enough to get into that kind of a war. We're not going to win. Okay, so then that's it. Do you feel better? You should. Wasn't that a beautiful mantra video? Okay, and that's on our YouTube and Francis Fox Reveals. Okay, so we shall see you again tomorrow, and the saga continues. Revelations on planet Earth, revelations that should have happened before, and it would have been easier. But here we are. Thank you for joining me. I'm Francis Fox.